Hey, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Thomas Patilli. I'm a comic book artist and an illustrator. And in this video, we're going to be looking through my sketchbook. About 6 months ago, maybe more, I made a video showing you what I did in the first half of this sketchbook right here. This is my Stay Warm sketchbook. This is actually last year's Stay Warm sketchbook. The current one, I made a recent video about that one. I haven't started it yet. I'm gonna start it very soon since I just finished this one up. But in this video, I wanted to show you the second half of this now finished Stay Warm sketchbook. I've mentioned in a lot of my recent videos that my sketchbook practice has been a really big part of my regular art education recently. I've been doing a lot of studies of other artists. Of course, very regular Stay Warm warm-ups in the morning. Really trying to push myself in my sketchbook, as well as just have fun and remind myself that if sketchbooking is gonna be a regular part of my life and process as an artist, every page in here can't be a perfect page. And as you'll see, every page in here is definitely not a perfect page of art. But that's sort of the whole point. There's some good stuff in here, there's some not good stuff in here, there's some stuff that might be worth turning into something more finished down the line. But it's really just a collection of not only ideas, but kind of snapshots and documentations of where I'm at as an artist at a specific time. In recent sketchbooks, I've really found myself referencing my own art in certain instances. At the very least, just as a way to kind of remind myself that at one point I was actually able to do that thing. I was actually able to accomplish this one particular thing that I'm trying to bring into my finished work. It really is, as an artist, for me, my sketchbooks have become a really great resource for me. And I've mentioned this in so many other videos and all over different posts, but I'm really starting to see the direct results of that in my final finished art. So I hope you enjoy looking through my sketchbook in this video, and maybe it'll be a reminder to you to start a sketchbook habit in 2025, if that's something that you've been wanting to do. And if you're already a sketchbooker, an avid, regular sketchbooker, perhaps this could be a reminder to just keep going with it. And now there's nothing left to do but to start my next sketchbook, which is my latest Stay Warm sketchbook. I made a recent video about this one, and many of you have picked this one up, and I've been already seeing some of the drawings that have been coming out of your latest Stay Warm sketchbook, and it's really awesome to see. It's really making me super excited to jump into mine and start the new year with a new sketchbook. Both of these sketchbooks were available for limited amounts of time when they were released, respectively. But for a short amount of time, I'm going to re-release both of these sketchbooks so that if you weren't able to pick up either one of these, now's your chance to get an original Stay Warm sketchbook and start filling them up with a bunch of amazing artwork in 2025. So if you're interested in picking up either one of these or both of these, check out the description. I'll put the link to where you can get all of that. But either way, I hope you enjoy looking through this video of the second half of my now completed Stay Warm sketchbook. Okay, the second half of this sketchbook. Let's get into it. I know where we last left off. Seems like a really long time ago because it was right here. This was midway through my May Warm Sketchbook Challenge, which was a month-long sketchbook challenge in the month of May. Maybe this wasn't midway through it, but maybe it was like a quarter of the way through the challenge. So we'll just keep going and pick up where we left off. For that month-long sketchbook challenge, I created a unique prompt for every day of the month of May. And on this day, the prompt was to draw animals, something like that. So I just pulled up some animal reference and warmed up that morning just by drawing animals. Animals is something that is a challenge for me. It's not like a go-to for me. Normally, if I'm just going to start drawing, I'm going to probably 9 times out of 10 draw a human, just draw a person or a face or something like that. So animals are a real challenge for me, and it's one of the reasons why I put that prompt in the month. And I certainly can't draw them well from my head. I could barely draw them from photos like I did here, but it's a really great exercise because as you start to do it, you start to kind of understand that um, it's similar in a lot of ways to drawing a human, where you really just want to get that quick gesture down of the figure and then build upon that. The proportions of animals are very different, obviously. It almost in a weird way reminds me of like drawing little kids or babies or something, where they have like these big heads and smaller bodies. Obviously, every animal is different, but there's a real language to their proportion and their bodies. Again, something that I'm not really all that familiar with. And doing an exercise like this kind of reminded me of how I should probably practice drawing animals a lot more. I've always been so impressed by animators, people who are able to animate animals and bring life and personality to animals in a way that doesn't feel foreign or stiff. Maybe one day, if I keep practicing animals, I'll get there. We'll see. Since this exercise here, I haven't really drawn any animals in my sketchbook, so this is a reminder for me to maybe start drawing some animals again. Here was me just working out a panel from my personal passion project, The Adventures of Jan and Tex. I've mentioned it here before on this channel, but the prompt for this day was to just draw a panel from a comic. So it could be a panel from a page of a comic that doesn't exist. It could be a panel from a page that does exist, a comic that you drew, maybe, you know, a panel from a Batman comic that never happened, anything like that. So this was me just kind of taking the opportunity to work out a composition of a panel from one of the layouts from one of the pages of my creator-owned comic. The next day was to draw feet. We drew hands earlier in the month, and then of course feet. Hands are really hard, and perhaps feet are even harder. So I just pulled up some photo reference and just got to work. Hands and feet are a really good thing to draw regularly. It's, again, seeing this right now as a reminder for me to probably do more of that. Hands and feet are both very intimidating things to draw as artists, especially comic book artists. Sometimes we tend to draw people with the hands behind their back, or maybe a rock strategically placed in front of a character's feet. But I think if you chip away a little bit every day or regularly and just try and push yourself to draw a foot or a hand, and you could always model using your own hands, I feel like it's a muscle that sort of develops the ability to kind of understand the shapes and the curves of a hand and a foot. And the more you do it, the less intimidating that shape can be. And the more I do it, the more I realize that I tend to hide the hands and the feet a lot less in my drawings. It's not to say that I don't still hide them, but I guess I'm just hiding them less, which is probably a good thing. Okay, so this was another prompt that month. I actually made a YouTube video this day, and the prompt was to draw people in public or something like that. Take your sketchbook to a public place. I can't remember the exact prompt, but it's a fun one. It's one of the things that I actually like to do the most in my sketchbook, which is just to draw people when they don't know that I'm drawing them. It's a little creepy, I guess, but sometimes when you have a model that is moving and doing real things, the challenge becomes to try and capture their natural movement and body language by essentially creating like a composite of all the little movements that you're making a mental note of as you're observing. So in the short video that I made about this, I actually mentioned something that I saw James Gurney say in one of his videos, which is that when you're drawing people from life, people just moving and doing things, if you study them long enough, you start to realize that they kind of have this like default position that they come back to. If someone's reading or drinking a cup of coffee or scrolling through their phone or working as baristas, there's a couple maybe default positions that they kind of come back to. We all have our specific postures and things like that, and we might stop and turn and talk to somebody, but in those in-between moments, we tend to maybe lean a certain way or look down a certain way. And for instance, when one of the characters moves his head or goes away to walk over here or something like that, I could pretty much count on the fact that he's going to come back to this spot and probably take a similar pose. So I then will start to just work on the arm or the posture, even while he's over here, just kind of drawing a little bit from memory. And then when he comes back, then I could get a little bit more of the nuances of his face or the glasses or the pattern of the shirt or whatever it might be. So that's really the challenge of working from, I guess you would call it like live models that don't know that you're drawing them. They don't know that they're models. It's a really fun and challenging thing to do. When you first start doing it, it feels chaotic. Like you're just, you're trying to draw like air or something like that. It's constantly moving. But the more you do it, the more you realize there's certain patterns that exist in people. And that understanding alone is actually kind of an interesting thing to learn about your own observational skills. So this was a really fun day. I went to a coffee shop that I frequent quite often. I just sat in the back. I actually told them that I was going to be drawing them and they were super cool with it. And then I just spent a couple hours just drawing some of the action that was happening that day. This was a strange exercise here. I think the prompt this day was to draw a famous person from your imagination without looking at reference. So I picked Abraham Lincoln and tried to draw Lincoln without reference. And it was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. I think a lot of like iconic people that we kind of know what they look like in our head, when we tried to draw it out, we realized like how fuzzy that image really is. And then when I looked up a photo of him after I drew it, I realized how far off I really was. But it was a really interesting exercise. I feel like I should do more of this. It's kind of like a memory exercise in a lot of ways. The next day, the prompt was to imitate a specific artist, and I chose Frank Miller. This is a fun exercise that really helps you understand a certain artist and study a certain artist like really hands-on. You kind of have to really figure out like what is it that makes that artist's work recognizable. If I had to cook up a Frank Miller drawing, what are the ingredients that I would put into that recipe? And so I was thinking about obviously the very high contrast aspect of his work. I was thinking about the way he very graphically renders something like hair into just black and white shapes. And I just created this character that's essentially like a Electra meets Space Girl or something like that. I was just kind of riffing as I went. But it was a fun exercise, and it kind of pushes you a little bit outside of your own inclinations to draw the way you normally draw. And I specifically picked an artist like Frank Miller because I appreciate Frank Miller's work, and I like to look at especially a lot of his like original black and white ink drawings online. But I wouldn't consider myself to be like a huge Frank Miller fan. And I wanted to pick an artist like that because I think I'm already kind of subconsciously pulling from a lot of the artists that I do like and that I am influenced by. So I wanted to kind of step out of that box, if you will, and try and pull from an outside source that I might not be directly influenced by. Speaking of studies, this was a direct study from a panel from a Alex Toth comic. This was from a Bravo for Adventure comic that I have. I think I did a video on that book. If not, I'm going to do one soon. But this was just another great opportunity to do a study of an artist that I am actually very directly influenced by, Alex Toth. I believe the prompt this day was to draw something with non-traditional art supplies, like no brushes, no pens, different things like that, and see what you could do. So I think I drew with a banana, the stem, like the top part of the banana. I had some weird like mesh, like aluminum mesh or something like that I used down here. And then I think the rest was really just my fingers. It's kind of like old school finger painting. It was actually a lot of fun. Just a reminder that you don't need fancy art supplies. You don't even need any art supplies, in fact. You can just draw with whatever you have on hand, even if it is your actual hand. The prompt this day was to draw a live sporting event, whether you actually went to a real sporting event in person or were watching something on TV. I chose a Canelo boxing fight that was, I just found online. And instead of like freeze framing parts of it, I did what I did when I was at the coffee shop, where I just let the fight play out and I just tried to draw live, just draw them moving in real motion. And it was similar to what I was talking about last time, which is that although the camera was moving constantly and these guys in the ring are constantly moving, there's similarities and repeat positions that they keep coming back to. One of them is obviously going to be throwing a jab. One of them is going to be defending himself. So even though the action is always changing, you can kind of rely on the fact that they're going to come back to these very recognizable stances from time to time. And in the meantime, while you wait for them essentially to come back into those stances, then you work on little details like perhaps their trunks or their hair or some of just like the individual character features that they have. So this is another really fun and challenging exercise when it comes to trying to get better at just drawing the human figure, drawing people, drawing movement. It's really great to draw from photographs. I do it quite a bit. You will see more of that in this sketchbook, but drawing a moving person is a whole other challenge. And I think in a lot of ways, it pushes me to not only capture the figure in a way that's much more lively and energetic, but I tend to use my tools a little bit differently. I use them much more energetically. I get different kinds of lines, very immediate, lively lines. I'm using more dry brush. It's not super precious, and I really like that. And I go back to pieces like this in my sketchbook and try to remind myself to bring elements of this into my finished work. The prompt this day was to draw a memory, a fond memory. And so I drew a childhood memory that I had of me and my sister. One summer, we would wake up like really, really early every morning. Like I'm talking like 5 a.m. to watch Sailor Moon on TV. For some reason, I think it was in syndication, and the only time that they were playing it was at like 5 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why, and I'm not sure why we were so into Sailor Moon either, but we were. And we would eat cereal and watch Sailor Moon. And then after Sailor Moon, there was like a bunch of like other cartoons too. So it was like morning, summers, watch like a couple hours of cartoons, eat cereal. Pretty fond memories. So this was a cool one. And I sent this pic to my sister, and she really loved it. So that's cool. For Christmas this year, I actually created a painting based off of this sketch and sent it to my sister too. So that's the cool thing about sketchbooks, is that there's endless opportunity for ideas that you can kind of take and make into final drawings and illustrations. Who's that? I don't know. You tell me. It's supposed to be me. The prompt this day was to draw a caricature of yourself and to try and be as brutal as you can. So I kind of tried to accentuate all of the features that I think call for accentuation on my face. My big teeth, my big ears, my big nose specifically. This was actually really fun. I worked off of a photo of myself and then just tried to approach it like I was sitting down to draw a caricature of someone that I didn't know. It's very difficult to be that objective when you're looking at yourself, but that was at least the attempt that I made. I used to love caricature and caricature artists when I was younger. I would get like caricature books out of the library, and I really loved Mort Drucker. I still do. And so I was trying to channel at least some of that into this. Caricature is not something that I do often, but I do think that doing caricatures actually can really help you draw your more realistic stuff better. Something about like understanding the extreme side of things helps you understand that middle area a little bit better. So I think stepping outside of your comfort zone, for me, this was a really good exercise just to do something a little bit more extreme. If I were to then go back and try and draw myself a little bit more, I don't know, realistically, not that my style is realistic, but less cartoony than this, it kind of helps me understand some of my own features and proportions a little bit better. I think if you're able to add maybe 5 to 10% of a little bit of caricature into your art, it kind of gives it a certain kind of life and energy. These were gestures. One of the days were to do just a bunch of quick gesture drawings. I think I was doing like 30-second gesture drawings. Those are always fun, a really great way to loosen up. And then you could always go back and just build on top of those. Oftentimes, if you go to like a live model drawing class, the session usually starts off with, 10 to 30-second, really quick and fast gesture drawing poses. And then the poses progressively get longer and longer. And by the time you get up to like 3 to 5 minutes, you feel like you almost have like an eternity to draw these figures. In the beginning, 20 seconds or 30 seconds seems like, how am I even going to get one line on the page? And then the more of those that you do, the more comfortable you get with just getting big shapes down and understanding the full gesture from head to toe of the figure very quickly. And it doesn't take long. It can really just take 20 to 30 seconds. And then from there, you can really just build upon the figure. That's why in a live model drawing session, when you have, like a 5, 10, 15-minute pose, it really does. It feels like you have hours at a certain point. This prompt was to draw a famous figure from history. I think that's what it was. So I picked Teddy Roosevelt, super interesting guy. A couple of years ago, I listened to one of his like biographies, like an audiobook of one of his biographies, and found it to be really interesting. So I figured I would draw him, and I kind of wanted to draw someone in different types of clothing that wasn't like today's clothing. So that kind of helped. So this was just from a photo. And yeah, this was fun. This prompt, I can't remember the exact wording, but I think it was just to draw like an environment, something with no people, just an environment. And so I worked off of a photograph and a little bit of my imagination. And yeah, I used some gray marker and some black marker. Tried to push myself a little bit with lighting and just backgrounds in general. When you're drawing comics and illustrations, sometimes, at least for me, I'm so much more interested in the characters and the figure work. Just focusing on backgrounds and architecture and trying to bring some kind of life into those things is something that I'm always trying to get better at. Just because I don't have a natural inclination to get excited oftentimes about drawing stuff like this, I'm trying to figure out ways of getting excited about it so that I can just make my work that much stronger and make the worlds that I'm trying to build that much stronger. This was to draw a vehicle, perhaps. I can't quite remember, but I picked a Vespa, a couple of photos of a Vespa. Again, another reminder that my vehicle drawing is very not up to par. So if anything, this video is helpful for me because it's reminding me of what I need to practice and bring into 2025, work on in my next sketchbook, that's for sure. The prompt this day was to draw something and not take your hand off of the page. I'm pretty sure. I don't know how I said that in the list of prompts, but that's what this was. I was just drawing from a photograph. And then I think at the end, I just added a little bit of a wash on top of it because why not? So this was really fun. You get a different look to your work. But sometimes when I'm drawing from life, or if I'm drawing people moving or something like that, I kind of just do that naturally because I don't want to take my hand off the page and almost like lose time in a way, because you're drawing people and you don't know if they're going to move or not. And so it's a good skill to kind of develop because it helps you capture something fast. You might not get it as fine-tuned and finessed as you would, obviously, if you're drawing more naturally, taking your hand on and off, but it helps you get an image down faster. And I think it really kind of taps into that eye-hand thing that happens, that kind of coordination where you see something and you draw it. And it's kind of like your eye and your hand become one in that moment. Okay, so I think that was it for the month-long May prompts. And then the rest of the sketchbook is just me using it like a regular sketchbook. At one point, I was messing around with just a cheap ballpoint pen that I found at Target. I was talking to a friend of mine and he was telling me and showing me some of his really amazing ballpoint pen sketches. And we were just talking about the immediacy of something like a ballpoint pen and how you don't always have to use all these like fancy tools, brushes, pencils. There's something really nice about drawing with a ballpoint pen. Maybe it brings us back to our school days when we were just doodling in a notebook. I think there's also like a really nice softness that you can get with a ballpoint pen. You can really build up a line and get kind of like a gradation there. So this is just me messing around with ballpoint pen. Here's some pencil stuff. A lot of times I'll start stuff and then abandon it and keep moving. I think that's kind of the beauty of a sketchbook. It's not finished work, which means you don't have to finish it. You kind of just get what you need to get out of it in that moment and then just keep moving on. You could always come back and kind of like finesse things. So this is just me warming up, messing around some more with some ballpoint pen, just drawing from some photo reference that I found online. Here's some more of that brush pen stuff. A lot of these are just Stay Warm sketchbooks that I'll do in the morning. I like to find images on Pinterest or Instagram or wherever and just kind of warm up. I try and challenge myself with interesting poses, interesting characters, interesting angles. It's just good that first thing in the morning, you kind of just throw yourself in, start sketching, start stretching. Sometimes it's a good drawing, sometimes it's a bad drawing. Either way, it's working towards something and just getting your hand moving on the page. This was some thumbnail stuff that I was doing for a commission that I was working on. I actually made a video about the process behind this commission. I probably showed these sketches in that video, but sometimes a sketchbook can be very practical in this regard as well. This is where you can work out thumbnails and different ideas, even write down ideas. It's kind of just like a journal or a notebook. So that's what I used this spread for. Here were some action poses that I found. It's really nice to find like sports reference online. Tennis players, Olympians, runners, baseball players, they tend to be in very dynamic positions. And that can really help in terms of getting better at dynamic drawing and pushing yourself in terms of your figure drawing. It's one thing to know how to draw a figure standing or sitting or looking all cool and brooding. It's another thing to try and draw a figure partially upside down or leaping into action. It also helps you understand a little bit more of the musculature, especially when you're drawing like athletes. Here's just me messing around with some lighting, watercolor, some gouache mixed with ink. Here's a pencil sketch of my original character, Jan. I did this for another video actually about inking with two different sets of supplies in two different ways. I'll link that somewhere here if you're interested in watching that. Here's another video exercise that I made, which was to draw from the same photo every day for I think a week. So every day in the morning, my warm-up was to draw from this one particular piece of photo reference. I thought it had some really great lighting, it had some great drapery, it had some great figure work, hand work, all that kind of stuff. So every day I tried to approach that piece of photo reference a little bit differently. And you can see here, I'll just flip through. There's just different approaches to that same exact piece of photo reference. And at the end of it, I think I even tried to mess around with some color and some painting. I'm not sure if I have a favorite. Perhaps this page, I feel like things were starting to finally come together. And I think I also like this one as well. Repetition is a really great way to learn. And a lot of times in my sketchbook, I will draw something once and then in the corner or on the next page, I'll like redraw it or just redraw a detail of it. Here's some more warm-ups just from photographs, using different calligraphy pens, gray marker, a little bit of gouache with pen on top. More warm-ups, some more dynamic, challenging poses, different stark lighting. I made a video on this spread as well. This was my just a bunch of studies that I did of different illustrators, comic book artists, animators. You could watch that video. I'll link it here, but this was really fun. In that video, I go much more into depth on all of these, but sketchbooks have in a lot of ways become a really great place for me to do studies of other artists in. And I find that the more I do that, the more I take of that into my own work and the better I'm getting as an artist. I've always heard of other artists doing these things, studying other artists, and it's something that I would do every once in a blue. But in this sketchbook and in previous sketchbooks within the last few years, it's something that I've really been doing much more regularly. And I can tell you I'm really seeing the direct results of it in my own work in a positive way. So that's really exciting and encouraging. More warm-ups, more just figure drawing practice. A lot of these are just from photographs. This was a demonstration that I did for another video. I'll link that here as well, just for just different ways about drawing hair and some of my thinking behind drawing different types of hair. I like to skip around a lot in my sketchbook, so this I actually did really recently. Even though this is in an earlier part of my sketchbook, I kind of just found an empty page, and I'll just fill up empty pages when I see them. So this was just a little warm-up that I did recently of some like street band that I found a photograph of online. Here's another study of Gil Elverin. He's one of my favorite pinup artists. And this is like a really poor and humble interpretation of one of his pieces. But it was really fun just to try and play around with gouache and getting better at not only just the application of the gouache, but also just the blending of colors and just overall just trying to understand color better. This was for Nexus, how to draw the animated Nexus video that I made, where I was drawing from Steve Rude's instructional book, which is super helpful. Again, I'll link that video somewhere here or down below if you're interested in watching that full thing. Some more painting practice. Marilyn Monroe. This is just a photo of Marilyn Monroe that I tried my best to execute in gouache paint. Like I've said many times, I'm really attracted to the dramatic kind of extreme lighting in certain photos. And I think it really helps when you're practicing painting specifically, because it really kind of delineates light and dark in a very clear and extreme way. And because I'm a beginner painter, it's harder for me to understand the little tiny subtleties, but perhaps it's a little bit easier for me to understand the more extreme gradations of light to dark. So this was a really fun study, and I'm actually really happy with the way this one came out. I tend to look back at a sketch like this when I've been working on some of my newer painting work and using it as reference. Here's some more warm-ups, ink drawings, ink wash, all from photographs. Here's some more figure work stuff. These again are mainly Stay Warm warm-up drawings that I'll do live on Instagram most of the time. A lot of you tend to do them along with me, which is a lot of fun. If you follow me on Instagram, I have a broadcast channel on my page, and I'll oftentimes put up a bunch of the reference that I'm going to work off of that morning. And then you can use it to do it along with me or do it later in the day or some other time if you want. So I just find, like I said, a lot of these photos on Pinterest or Instagram, and I like a lot of these old like movie stills from old movies and black and white photographs. They just tend to be fun to draw and kind of understand lighting better in. This was from some channel on YouTube. I'll try to remember to link it here or put it somewhere on the screen, but it's a pretty great resource where they just have a lot of like, it's like an hour and a half of a live model just doing different timed poses. So I think it starts with like 1 minute poses and it works its way up to longer poses. But a lot of the models are like costumed. And then this one was a guy dressed up as a cowboy taking really cool poses. Here's some more real quick gestures from that particular model session. And then to end the sketchbook, this is me just doing some more painting practice. That's sort of been the theme of 2024 with me. Really, I'm trying to push myself to get better at gouache painting and just understand color better. That's been my main goal, and I feel like from the start of this year to where I'm at now at the end of the year, I really do feel like I've seen the improvements. And like I said earlier, a lot of that I can attribute to just studying other artists and doing studies of their work directly in my sketchbook. So this is a J.C. Leyendecker study that I did very recently of one of his paintings, and it's just a detail of one of his paintings. And J.C. Leyendecker worked in oil, I think, primarily, and I'm obviously working in gouache. But a study like this is really just me trying to understand color better, not necessarily how to paint in oil or specifically in gouache, but just to understand color theory a little bit better and just get comfortable with applying color and paint to a page, and not necessarily having to rely on line, ink line primarily, in order to draw and delineate figures. I love line and line drawing. It's not something that I plan on giving up, but I feel like pushing myself to be able to describe figures and objects in my art just with color and not with line, I think in a way it's actually making my line art stronger as well. So for 2025, you can bet on seeing more painting work from me. I'm hoping to make even more progress in this area, and I know my sketchbooks are going to really help in that. I know my next sketchbook, there's going to be a lot more painting studies and other artist studies, so I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you enjoyed that video and the look at my now completed Stay Warm sketchbook. Thanks so much for watching this video, and thanks so much for watching all the videos this year. 2024 has been the year that I really put a lot of effort and time into this channel, making very consistent videos, and it's been a lot of fun and very rewarding for me. I really love all the feedback and comments that I've been getting on this channel. I feel like there's a community being built around this channel, and that's really awesome to see. I'm looking forward to a lot more videos in 2025 and just seeing where this channel can go. With that, I would love to hear some of your suggestions of the types of videos that you would like to see me make in 2025. Perhaps there's some specific videos that I was making this past year that you would like to see more of in 2025. Or maybe there's some videos that I haven't yet made that you would like to see me create this coming year. Either way, I have a lot of really exciting ideas, and I can't wait to start the new year with a bunch of new artwork, new videos, and a lot of cool stuff to share with all of you. So thanks so much for watching throughout the year. I hope you continue to watch throughout the new year. Remember to like this video, and if you're not subscribed, now is definitely the time to do it. Remember, once again, if you want to pick up either one of these Stay Warm sketchbooks, you can do that in the link in the description. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care and Happy New Year.